Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Now, tonight on the show, we'll continue our conversation from last night about the Election Commission's delay in implementing the constitutional amendment to lower the voting age. Now, over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be speaking to 3 youth leaders about the implications of this move in reshaping Malaysian politics and policies. Our first guest tonight is youth activist Nurul Rifaya Muhammad Iqbal. She was at last Saturday's demonstration protesting the EC's move. Rifaya, hi, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Now, I'm wondering if I may begin the conversation by referencing the demonstration last Saturday. Now, it seemed, according to some news reports, that the turnout was rather small at the protest. Is that an indication of limited support by young people following the news of the postponement of implementing Undi 18?
All right. So first of all, thank you for having me. Since the protest, I received a lot of positive feedback and also from NGOs as well. So they are asking if there's, what's next? After Himpunan Sekretariat Undi 18 do the protest, then what's next? So maybe there's going to be another protest, or maybe we are going to do online protest. So, yeah, we do see that lots of youth out there that actually really want to speak up and talk to the government, talk to everyone that this is my right, this is our right, and this is your right to vote for the country. So I can see the outcome is really, I would say not that really strong, but yeah, there's actually a slightly impact from that. Yeah.
Rifaya, do you think, and in some sort of paradoxical way, that this Undi 18, the success of the campaign and the legislative change that everybody was hoping is going to be a huge game changer for the country, came too easily? Because everybody signed up for it across, there was bipartisan support. In some sense, you didn't have to go to the ground very much to make the case. And now we have a situation where it's kind of taken away from you. And this is a moment of a test. It's a test for both the groups campaigning as well as the young people, the stakeholders themselves. Do you see this test being passed, as it were?
To me, I don't think that Undi 18 is going to be easily passed, But what are we trying to do is we want to show to the government, we want to show to other people as well that we are really taking this seriously, and we're taking this matter like this is going to be a big impact and big turns up into our life. And we really hope that the government could see that we actually want to be in the decision-making position, and we want to shape our country into a better position, into a better country. So that's what we really want. And if we are talking about does the bill is going to be passed, or what's next, the Undi 18 going to sue the government or so on, I won't comment on that, but what I can say is I really hope that the government could see that we're taking this issue seriously, and we really hope that not just the government, but everyone could be together and support us, and not just us, parents as well. The parents could say that, okay, I want my children to vote because of this is their right. So I really hope that we can get that positive feedback from other categories as well.
Rifaya, I saw a quote that came from you that you gave, which I thought was quite interesting. And if I may cite you, you said that if this bill isn't implemented, we're going to be sending a message to 18-year-olds that political awareness doesn't matter and that there is no incentive to learn. Can you elaborate a little bit about what you were thinking about when you said that?
Because as we know that nowadays, politics is so sensitive, especially to those who are in secondary school. We can't even put politician names into our essay. We can't even elevate what's going on in our country into our EM or even in any language exam papers. So if you don't like us to vote, then don't say that this issue is sensitive, and don't say to us that politics is an issue that you don't have to think about. So this is something that we need to change. Like, if you say that we don't eligible to, we're not matured enough to vote, then you have to change the education system itself. And if you say that, okay, the bill is not passed because of we are not mature, or the bill is not passed because we are not adults yet, then make it adult. Make us adults. Teach us how to become adults. The education system, since my mom here, since my parents here, there's nothing, no changes at all. So this is the moment where if you think that the bill is not something seriously, and if you think that the education system is one of the main, we don't have any political education or any political lessons, so you have to make us to understand what is going on in the country. And maybe I can add on, I'm just 18 years old, and I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be in the protest. I'm supposed to enjoy my life after SPM. But because of what happened now here, because of the country itself, still our future, I have to pay tax. Every time I want to buy something, I have to pay tax. But seriously, I have to pay tax for the government that I can't even vote for my government. So it's not fair at all. So listen to our voice and act on it. You have still our dreams. You have still our future. Then this is the moment we are begging for you. We are begging for you to actually make us to be in the decision-making position. Yeah.
Rufaya, thank you for your time. We appreciate you speaking with us tonight. We're going to take a quick break here on Consider This, but we'll be back with more on this topic in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned.
Di wilayah Selkom,
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face masks, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Bila sentuh soal berita, tiada masa untuk tunggu. Kepada anda kami bawakan fakta, susulan dan kupasan yang terkini. Tiada drama dan tiada pengulangan. Usah tunggu lama-lama. Awani 745 lebih awal dari biasa.
kini berwajah baru.
Ini pula susulan khas pesawat Back Air di Kazakhstan. Pesawat berkenaan dilaporkan tergelincir.
Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. The Election Commission's delay in implementing the constitutional amendment to lower the voting age is going to have an immediate impact on the Sarawak elections, which is expected this year after the emergency is lifted. Nadia Maliana Azman is the research lead at Undi Sarawak, and she joins us on the line now. Nadia, good evening. Now, some estimates I've read have put the figure at 135,000 young people in Sarawak between the ages of 18 and 21 who would immediately be excluded from voting in the upcoming 12th state elections. Now, what feedback are you hearing, Nadia, about how young Sarawakians are reacting to the news that they will likely not be able to vote?
So basically, the young Sarawakians that I've talked to and discussed to about this matter are frankly quite upset because many of them were expecting the Election Commission to be on track with their implementation because previously, before last week's statement, the EC as well as the Law Minister has frequently reiterated that, okay, we're going to implement it by July 2021. So obviously now it's not the case. This is also because the Sarawak State Legislative Assembly has actually amended the state constitution during the last November 2020 sitting to enable young Sarawakians aged 18 to 20 to actually stand in the elections. So I guess what we're basically saying now is that if you're a young Sarawakian aged 18 to 20, you could possibly stand for the next state elections, but you can't actually vote. It's very strange because I think standing in an election is actually a larger commitment compared to being able to vote.
Nadia, who do people blame for this? Do they buy the explanation given that this is an administrative thing, it's about the logistics of aligning the automatic voter registration system with the electoral rolls? Is that what they agree is the problem?
I think the youth that I've asked are very clear in blaming the EC, because you can actually implement the lowered voting age and automatic voter registration separately. There is nothing saying that it must be implemented simultaneously. In fact, the EC even stated at one point that it was up to them to decide whether to implement that separately or simultaneously.
Right. So if I may just look at Sabah in the last state elections in September last year, voter turnout was about 40% youth made up the voter turnout during those elections. And I'm wondering whether young people in Sarawak are equally as motivated to exercise their rights at the ballot box.
I think it remains to be seen, to be honest, because a growing number of young Sarawakians are actually working and studying outside of Sarawak itself, and due to Sarawak's current policy for 14-day quarantine and flight tickets being prohibitively expensive, there might be a significant number of young Sarawakians that might not be able to return as soon as election is called. Additionally, I'd like to point out that postal voter eligibility so far has not been given to those who are working outside of Sarawak, at least not for state elections, I think. So that will greatly influence the youth voter turnout in Sarawak, which, if I may recall, in the last state election was quite low as well.
Right.
Nadia, do you think, saying that, it's kind of all systems go in Sarawak, were political parties themselves transforming their messaging, looking at that platform, or really looking at their platform and saying, we need to reach out to this new demographic? And now that that's changed, do you think political parties will revert to their old games, or their old game plans rather than include this new demographic in their outreach?
I think so far from my observations, all political parties in Sarawak have begun subtle on-ground campaigning. But at the same time, I also would like to acknowledge the fact that we now have a digital state TV channel, TV Sarawak, which I expect can be used for election campaigning as well. And in rural Sarawak, actually, WhatsApp is still the reigning method of getting news, or like the internet as they know it. Right. So I expect campaigning to happen more on WhatsApp as well, rather than, say, on other social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram.
Okay. Well, okay. So you've had a couple of days together. Your thoughts now after hearing the news. What are civil society organizations and organizations like Undi Sarawak doing in response to the announcement by the EC?
I think as for Undi Sarawak, we are trying to push for more Sarawakian youths to have conversations about as well as to continue holding Sarawakian politicians to hold the Malaysian government to their promise. But ultimately, we will continue to pressure the Prime Minister and the Malaysian government. But Undi 18 is actually launching a court challenge as announced last Friday. So that court challenge will be announced this Friday, and they will also be doing a fundraising to fund that court challenge as well. Like more details of that fundraiser as well as the challenge will be announced on Friday via press as well as all the Undi 18 social media channels.
Okay, we're going to be keeping an eye out for that, Nadia. But we want to thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. Appreciate your time. We're going to take a quick break, but more in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned.
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face mask, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Bila sentuh soal berita, tiada masa untuk tunggu. Kepada anda kami bawakan fakta, susulan dan kupasan yang terkini. Tiada drama dan tiada pengulangan. Usah tunggu lama-lama. Awani 745 lebih awal dari biasa.
Kini berwajah baru.
Ini pula susulan khas pesawat Back Air di Kazakhstan. Pesawat berkenaan dilaporkan tergelincir 2 kali.
Notifikasi berita terkini.
Hello, if you've just joined us, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. Let's continue our conversation about the delay in implementing the lower voting age. We've got Ryan Ho on the line. He's the spokesperson for MCA Youth. Ryan, good evening. Now, do you think the public views this delay as a political decision by the current Berita national government and by extension the MCA? How would you explain this to your 18 to 21-year-old base?
As to whether it is a political move or not, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
As to whether it's a political move or not, I cannot comment much about it. But essentially for MCA, right, our party stand is very clear. We are in full support of Undi 18. Our party president, Dato' Sri Wikasyong, and also our youth chief, Dato' Nico, both have made our stance very clear on this matter. Implementation of the Undi 18 needs to happen now. EC needs to sort out whatever issues they face. And also, what's curious is that EC mentioned that COVID-19 is stopping EC from implementing Undi 18. But the country's businesses and industries adapted to the new normal, and we're all still working during that period. What makes EC so special that they're unable to do it?
Ryan, is the MCA, as you know, member of the cabinet, and your president is member of the cabinet, putting pressure on the Prime Minister to urge the EC to, in fact, put this in place? And we've heard from many experts that say that precisely because of the emergency ordinance or the emergency rule, in fact, the government, the executive, is well placed to push this through?
Yes, I believe that our president, as a cabinet minister in this current Berita national government, he is very much in favor of Undi 18. Even recently, I think when the news broke that implementation will only happen in September 2022, in an interview, he already said that he is in full support and EC must sort this issue out. I believe he will also bring the voices of the public, right, to cabinet itself. And also, important to note also that our Barisan National partners, right, like for example, our Youth and Sports Minister and also KJ, he further mentioned that next week they will make a decision on this matter. They will bring it to cabinet and make a decision.
Ryan, I'm just wondering, you know, in the MCA's plans for the next general election, had the MCA put this new youth voter cohort into their plans for into your plans for regaining support at the next general elections? I mean, I'm wondering just what consequences will there be for MCA now that this cohort will be left out, likely left out of the next general elections?
For MCA, in MCA's perspective, of course, we want Undi 18 to be implemented immediately. As to whether this 7.8 million new voters estimated by 2023 to come into this political, to be able to vote, right, we will still take into account their views, their wants and needs. If we are forced to do so, we will have dialogues with them to bring up their voices as well.
Ryan, do you think that, okay, let's assume that in fact the next general election does not happen with this particular demographic on the rolls, that this will be a disincentive for political parties to rethink their platforms, that by removing this demographic, we've actually gone back to an old political logic, one based on norms and behavior already kind of set in place. Do you see this as a missed opportunity?
Yes, definitely. Because their voices will most likely be ignored and sidelined. As like correctly pointed out, there is now less incentive for political parties to attract this new group of young voters. Our youth at this age group are the most vulnerable. They can't afford to have policies and laws made without taking into account their needs for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that count, that I think this generation of youth has been really impacted quite hard compared to other generations. Now, I want to ask you about MCA as a party itself. I mean, in terms of demographics, in terms of dynamic, is MCA a party, as a party, is one that has young blood?
Yes, we do. We have... what is interesting is that we have managed to attract more young blood into our party. We are actively recruiting members at the moment. And we see a new revival or new interest, especially after the Undi 18 and everything. I have had engagements with the CISWA group. We have our own MCA CISWA as well. And also the younger generation in general. They are more proactive. They are more interested in taking part in politics compared to, let's say, during my generation, where things were more relaxed or more chill at that point.
Ryan, you know, this has been an extraordinarily volatile and same way, by the same token, interesting time for Malaysian politics, with many of the assumptions that we made before now, you know, withering on the vine, and that we now have to think about new possibilities. What do you think remains kind of the basic principles for the MCA in terms of its political vision for the country, now that it's in a government with the Islamic Party, and we heard recently the Islamic, a rep from the Islamic Party saying that if they won handsomely at the next general election, they would change the electoral system to ensure Malay Muslim majority and majoritarian rule. Is that something the MCA wants to stand by?
I heard about that particular news issue where they wanted 2/3 to be able to redraw the election boundaries. And I do not think that is the right thing to do. For us, MCA, we stand for all Malaysians. Yes, we are, at our core, a Chinese-based party. But our fight has always been for all Malaysians. redrawing the country political lines, right, based on the needs and wants of a particular demographic that's not democracy. We have to have equal representation. Like, for example, in Damansara, we have 170,000 voters. In Putrajaya, we have 30,000 voters, I believe. So there's that disparity. A supermajority should solve these kind of issues instead of just catering to a particular demographic.
Ryan, just a quick note, is coming to the end of the show. If the elections happen without 18-year-olds, will the MCA protest, or will they play along?
We will definitely protest. We will definitely protest because Undi 18 was passed in Parliament in July 2019, and it's specifically to make sure that the 18-year-old can vote come GE 15. We will protest and we will not sit quietly and just take it as it is.
Ryan, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of your day and sharing the MCItes and perspectives from MCA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melisa. Thank you, Sharaad.
Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching and good night.